Hello and welcome back to the channel, everybody. I am your host, Vortex from MobileMusicPro.com, your home for mobile music production. That was a pretty damn good first take. And if you're new to the channel, what we do here is we try to help and create more mobile music producers. And don't forget, you can always find videos just like this one in the description below. So smash those likes and subscribe if you want to learn more about music production on your iOS device. Now, in today's video, we're going to be helping you choose which iPad to buy for mobile music production. Now, whether you're buying new or upgrading, we're going to be giving you some tips and pointers to help you make the best selection possible. Now, at the time of this video recording in 2020, there's already a bunch of iPad models available. So we're not actually going to go through every single one, but we will be going through all the models currently available at Apple.com and a couple of the 2018 models as well. Now, we believe that your iPad choice should be based on three main factors, and those are price, proficiency, and portability. And so, what it really comes down to is how much can you afford, where you are in your music production career, and how much you'll be producing on the go versus being back in the studio. As it stands today, the iPad lineup is actually the broadest it's ever been, with prices ranging from $330 all the way up to $1,900 for the newest iPad Pro 2020, with the sizes ranging pretty greatly as well, from the iPad mini all the way up to the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. And so the choices out there actually end up being pretty vast, which is what inspired us to create this video. And let's face it, Apple doesn't really do the very best job at naming their iPads as well. I think one of their models is the iPad. So yeah, hopefully we can make this a little bit clearer for you. And so without further ado, let's get started finding you just the right iPad for your mobile music production needs. Now, the first thing we want to get out of the way, guys, is that we are not rich. And so we don't actually have every single one of these iPad models in our studio. We usually give away our older models to family members, and the only one we have in our studio currently is our 2018 iPad Pro 12.9-inch. And since we don't actually own all of these iPads, all of the research for this video was done online by scouring the web for reviews, comparisons, and demos. And of course, the iPad is capable of many things, from photos to drawing to video production and beyond. But just a reminder, this video is specifically for people that are looking for a new iPad for music production. And since this video is designed for music producers, we won't be covering every single detail of the iPad, such as the Apple Pencil, camera, and display. And of course, there are already many great YouTube videos out there covering all aspects of the iPad. And finally, we thought we should mention that the battery life is pretty much the same in every single iPad since the very first one. They've all roughly targeted about 10 solid hours of battery life. And as we said, we are including some 2018 models in this video because we do believe that these iPads are completely fine and viable for mobile music production in 2020. In fact, our iPad that we have in the studio is a 2018 model, and even with our previous iPad and all of my iPhones, I usually almost always buy refurbished, and always buy a couple generations behind, just because it is so much cheaper and they can all do whatever I pretty much need. And a couple of the best places that we found to buy used and refurbished iPads and iPhones is going to be eBay.com and Gazelle. Gazelle.com usually has a pretty great selection for both used and refurbished. And we'd also want to mention one of the best places out there on the internet to compare iPhone and iPad devices is going to be gsmarena.com. Some of the graphics that we've created today has come from that website. Now, they only let you compare about 3 devices at once, so for our graphics, we actually had to manually stitch them together in Photoshop. But GSM really is a great site and we can't recommend it enough. Okay, now let's quickly go through the devices that we'll be discussing today. And that's going to include the 2018 iPad Pros, the 2019 iPads including the standard iPad model, the iPad Air, and the iPad mini. And of course the recently released 2020 models. And a fair warning to all those viewers out there watching this video in the future, there will be some new iPad models released later this year in 2020, with the new iPad Pro models with that blazing fast A13X chips set to release next year. Alright, now let's take a look at some of these comparisons. We'll now go ahead and throw up our full screen image of the spec comparison chart that we got from gsmarena.com. Though the text is kind of small, you should still be able to see almost all of the information on there. So please feel free to pause the video at this moment if you'd like, so you can take a look at it or screenshot it. You should be able to see pictures of all of the iPad models that we'll be discussing today, with the categories of specs on the left-hand side. And of course, this video will have timestamps, so you'll always be able to come back straight to this point right away. Now, the next chart we're going to throw up is something that we made custom, and we're calling it right now the PPP chart, which stands for Price, Proficiency, and Portability, with a rating given to each one of these three sections labeled with numbers from 1 to 3, 1 being the worst and 3 being the best in each category. And in the next section, when we do talk about these iPads individually, we will be throwing up these ratings again for each individual iPad that we'll be talking about. But for now, you should be seeing all of the iPads lined up together. And once again, feel free to pause and or screenshot this image. We did try to make this as easy to understand as possible, so hopefully it's not that confusing. And a couple of those categories are self-explanatory, such as the price and portability. But we did want to throw in a proficiency category in there to sort of gauge where you are in your musical journey. Because if you are just starting out, you certainly don't need the latest and the greatest iPad. However, if you are an expert and going to be using the iPad at the pro level, then of course you'd probably want the latest and the greatest. But we are getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here. Alright, if you are done checking out those two full screen charts, then let's get into these comparisons, starting with the 2018 iPad Pros. Okay, we are starting out with these 2018 models, and we will be throwing up some graphics on the screen in the top right hand corner that show both the iPad's specs and our PPP ratings. These 2018 iPad Pro models are still very fast, which is why they're still a little bit expensive. They are using that A12X CPU chip, and all of the models except for the 1TB will come with 4GB of RAM, with the 1TB coming in at 6GB of RAM. And both of these were Apple's first iPads to utilize that USB-C port, which comes in super handy these days, as that's kind of the way that the world is heading. Now, of course, the 12.9-inch models of both the 2018 and 2020 aren't going to be as portable as the others, so those will have a rating of 1 on our portability category, with most of the 10 and 11-inch models all having a rating of 2 for portability. Now, the price range is going to vary on these models because these are, again, used and refurbished models that you'll have to purchase. But from what we can find on Gazelle.com and eBay, it does look like you can grab the 11-inch model around $699, with the 12.9-inch ranging from around $800 to $850. Again, these are still a little pricey, but they do pack that power still. And again, featuring that USB-C port comes in really handy, especially if you want to hook up modern audio interfaces to it without having the need to power those devices. You actually can hook up a brand new audio interface directly to the iPad via this USB-C port. And again, without that need for power, you can do it anywhere you'd like, making it all that much easier to make music on the go. And I have to say, I really am enjoying my 2018 model. It is extremely fast compared to our original 2015 iPad Pro. Now, if you own a 2017 iPad, there may not be so much of a reason for you to upgrade. But if you do own a 2015 or 2016 iPad, you should definitely be thinking about starting to upgrade. But if you are upgrading from that 2017 to the 2018, you will get a couple of great features like that USB-C port. Alright, now let's take a look at these 2019 iPad models. As you can see from the graph on the screen, we are comparing the 2019 iPad mini with the iPad base model and the 2019 iPad Air. Most of the 2019 iPads do feature the A12 processor, but the 2019 iPad 10.2-inch does only come still with that A10 processor, with the RAM on all of these models being 3GB, and all of these models also featuring the Lightning adapter. And the prices here are ranging from $399 to $799. As you can see from our chart, these prices are much less than the iPad Pros, and in our opinion are best suited for intermediate and novice producers. And of course, that iPad mini being the most portable of all the devices. This really is the category where you get the most bang for your buck. And the Mini ends up being pretty great for guitar players because it is still plenty fast enough to run all your standard guitar sim apps, but completely portable enough to fit pretty much anywhere, making it really easy to bring to your gigs on stage. Now, in our opinion, the Air doesn't really make a whole lot of sense here because it is kind of slow, somewhere around the iPad Mini range, maybe even a little bit slower, but it does end up being more expensive. So it really just doesn't make sense to grab it over the standard iPad. And if you already have a 2018 iPad, there really is no reason to upgrade to any of these 2019 iPads, especially if you already have a 2018 iPad Pro. So again, these are kind of put in the beginner and intermediate category due to the fact that they are cheaper and they're not quite as fast as those Pro models. Alright, and now let's take a look at the newest, the latest, and the greatest models as of the recording of this video, the new 2020 iPad Pros. Now, these iPads feature the brand new A12Z processor, which will be, of course, slower than the A13X processor coming out for the iPads next year. What's really cool, though, is the RAM in all of these 2020 iPad models have been upgraded to 6 gigabytes, which was previously only featured in the 1 terabyte model in the 2018 iPad Pro. And of course, because these are the latest and the greatest iPads, you know they will be featuring a USB-C port, which again is fantastic. It's faster, easier to use, can power more devices, and is really going to be with us for at least the next few years. Now, of course, there's a couple of upgrades that the music producers really don't care about too much. And one of those is, of course, the LiDAR detector, which is supposed to be really good for augmented reality. And then there's the better cameras, but again, those things really don't matter too much for most music producers. Now, one thing we'd like to mention here is that this new processor, the A12Z, is really not that much faster than the 2018 A12X featured in the iPad Pros. And in fact, you can go on YouTube and look at a bunch of comparisons and you'll see just about everything happens at about the same speed. And even in some cases for video editing, the 2018 iPad actually finishes rendering faster than the 2020. But of course, generally with most use cases, they are just about the exact same. So if you already have a 2019 iPad, there's really not a whole lot of reason for you to upgrade to these new 2020s. And it's probably a little bit better to wait for that new A13X processor. The same goes for those of you out there that still have the 2018 iPad Pro. There's really not a whole lot of reason here for you to upgrade as a music producer. Again, you should probably be waiting for that A13X processor next year. As you can see from our ratings that we've thrown up here in the top right hand corner, we have the price set as a 3 for both of these models because these are the Pro models that do start around $800. So as with our other 12.9-inch Pro models, we do have the proficiency here set to 3, meaning you should really only be checking out these Pro models if you are serious about mobile music production. And again, like the previous 2018 12.9-inch model, we have set the portability to 1, with our ratings again ranging from 1 to 3. Okay, and now we'll go ahead and throw up our full screen graph once more so you can see all of the iPad models that we've talked about today. And once again, feel free to pause the video and screenshot this image. And there is some construction going on in the background, so hopefully you guys don't hear any of that in the microphone. Alright, hopefully you guys have that screenshotted now so we can move on to the next section where we're going to be giving you our recommendations for which iPad you should get. Alright, here we are, our final recommendations. Now, personally, I started out on an iPad mini, and then upgraded to an iPad Air 2, and then got that 2015 iPad Pro, and finally I just recently upgraded to the 2018 iPad Pro. Now, the reason why we decided to go with the 2018 over the 2020 is simply due to price. We found a pretty good deal on a 12.9-inch iPad Pro 1 terabyte for around $900. And as we already mentioned, there really is not a whole lot of speed difference between that A12Z and A12X chip. So personally, for our needs, the 2018 iPad Pro worked out pretty well. Now, once again, our recommendations are based on those 3 properties, which is the price, your proficiency in music production, and the portability. Now, no matter what iPad you get, even if it's one not on this list, please at least make sure to get a 64 gigabyte size. Anything smaller than that really just is too small for 2020, as you will be finding yourself constantly deleting your older projects to save space. And that's of course no fun. So if you are on a budget and you are still just at that hobby level where you're just still trying to explore music production and what it is, then any of the 2019 iPads will work for you. and we'd recommend the base iPad with the 128GB storage, available currently for $429. Now, if you are on a budget but you are proficient in music production and you are doing professional music production work, then we'd recommend any of the 2018 iPad Pros, because they are still cheap compared to the 2020 iPad Pros, and yet they are still incredibly powerful with USB-C connectors. Now, if you aren't on that much of a budget and you do have some extra money to spend, and you're still playing around with music production and are at the beginner or intermediate level, we'd recommend checking out the base model of the 2020 iPad Pros, currently available for $799. Because this is still going to be a super powerful model, but is still within that standard laptop price range. So it's not entirely breaking the bank, and you are future-proofing yourself with that USB-C connector and a faster processor. And once again, all of the 2020 models do come with that 6GB of RAM. Alright, and now it's time for our final recommendation. If you are not on a budget and money really is no object, and you are a professional music producer, then we highly recommend the 2020 12.9-inch iPad Pro with the 1TB of space, because this is the fastest model that iPad makes, and it comes with that 6GB of RAM, and it has the most space, which comes in extremely handy for storing samples and using sample-based plugins like Sample Tank and PureSynth. It really is the most advanced iPad that you can buy for music production. And that's about it for our recommendations, folks. We hope that this was enough information for you to make your best decision. Again, whether you're upgrading or buying a brand new iPad, it's really hard to go wrong with any of these models. From the Mini to the standard iPad all the way up to the Pro, there really should be a model in there for just about everybody. Alright, welcome back everybody. We just wanted to say thanks again so much for watching the video this far. We really hope that this video has helped you figure out which iPad you're going to grab for your mobile music production needs. As we said, there really is a bunch of models to choose from, and there's going to be even more this fall. And as always, guys, you really don't need the very latest and the greatest version to start making music. And each passing generation gets faster and faster, making all previous generations that much more cheaper. So there will always be a perfect iPad just for you. And because of Apple's closed-loop model, with their hardware and software ecosystems being very tightly controlled and integrated with each other, you will continue to get pretty amazing performance out of very modest specs. And we will be doing videos just like this one every year or so, just to keep you updated on what's going on with the latest models of the iPad. So please, if you did find this video helpful, please let us know in the comments which iPad you ended up going with. And if you are enjoying content like this, folks, please let us know by smashing the likes and subscribing. Once again, our subscription ratios are getting pretty crazy, with over 70% of our viewers now not subscribed yet. So come on, guys, what are you waiting for? There really is so much more content still to come. And of course, we very much appreciate everybody sharing out the show. It really does help the channel get found by more and more people. So thanks again, everybody, so much for watching this video, and until next time, everybody, keep talking music, and we'll see you later. And if you're new to the channel, what we do here is we try to help and oh man, now I'm laughing. And if you're new, must stop laughing. I could do this.